And we're seeing fog reported in Aurora and in Waukegan this morning. 64 in Aurora. Next news at 7:30. Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan and Amy continues next on AM 560, The Answer.
From the Matrix Home Solutions Studios, this is Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560, The Answer.
Listen to AM 560 The Answer online at 560theanswer.com, on the AM 560 mobile app, on your Alexa-powered smart speaker, and on TuneIn, iHeart, and on Odyssey. This is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson on AM 560 The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan and Amy. The Biden administration needs to tighten up the scripts because Clinton Foundation donor Zero was having a hard time getting the proper answer from Joe Biden to the simple question of will American forces remain in Afghanistan unless and until all Americans, and I would add Afghan allies, I don't think Stephanopoulos did, are safely extracted.
Even if Americans and our Afghan allies are still trying to get out, they're going to leave?
No, he did mention.
We're going to do everything in our power to get all Americans out and our allies out.
Does that mean troops will stay beyond August 31st if necessary?
It depends on where we are and whether we can ramp these numbers up to 5,000 to 7,000 a day coming out. If that's the case, they'll all be out.
Because we've got like 10 to 15,000 Americans in the country right now, right? And are you committed to making sure that the troops stay until every American who wants to be out is out?
Yes.
How about our Afghan allies? We have about 80,000 people.
Well, that's not the
estimate. Is that too high?
That's too high.
How
the
many?
estimate we're giving is somewhere between 50 and 65,000 folks total, counting their families.
Does the commitment hold for them as well?
The commitment holds to get everyone out that, in fact, we can get out and everyone that should come out.
Oh my God, there's a big difference between 10 and 15,000 Americans.
Here's what you're supposed to say when the question is, are we going to keep our promises? One, the explicit promise to American citizens everywhere all the time, and the specific promise to our Afghan allies. And the answer to that question should be yes, and then you should act in furtherance of the affirmative answer.
You say, heck yes, of course. We are not going to leave until every American is out of Afghanistan. But you don't see that kind of conviction with him.
Stephanopoulos sort of finally got him into the corner where I'm supposed to say yes, and then he immediately backtracked and qualified that yes. I understand why he would qualify that yes, because his senior military leadership is doing the same. Milley and Austin, their briefing yesterday on the same question. First Milley, then Austin.
How can the U.S., the Pentagon, live up to that task of evacuating all Americans? Because we continue to see the violence just outside the airport, and how would you get them around the country unless you go get them?
Well, two things, Barbara. One is State Department, as you know, as I've said, is working with the Taliban to facilitate safe passage of American citizens, U.S. passport holders, to the airport. And that's the primary means, and under the current conditions, that's the primary effort. We have capability to do other things if necessary.
Well, can I ask you what that means? Because you also said there were international special forces there that have a capability to extract, and those words suggest very clearly in the military realm you would go get people.
Well, that would be a policy decision, and if directed, we have capabilities that can execute whatever we're directed.
Thank you.
Louis.
And I would draw a distinction, Barr, between extracting someone in an in extremis condition or circumstance versus going out and collecting up large numbers of American citizens.
Do you have the capability to go out and collect Americans?
We don't have the capability to go out and collect up large numbers of people, Barr.
That was some briefing. I'm left with a lot more questions than the D.C. press corps asked, and I'm amazed, especially when we're scrambling 4,000 troops to help with the extraction, that there's talk of international special forces. There's talk of Taliban safe passage. And the reports are not only there's chaos around the airport, difficulty for a lot of people to get to the airport. Yes, that the Taliban is offering some safe passage, but it's described this way by the Wall Street Journal. Despite intense Taliban checkpoints and random beatings, U.S. military transport planes are landing at the Kabul airport and departing with Americans, other Western nationals, and a smattering of Afghans. But the question is, what happens and what is the contingency planning? Because you've demonstrated you're not particularly adroit at contingency planning if that situation deteriorates, if the Taliban decides to change its position. We're relying on the goodwill of the Taliban to make sure we extract all of those Americans and all of those Afghan allies. And I'd also like to know from Biden, do you even really know? I mean, are we working off manifests of American citizens on the ground and Afghan allies to make sure that everybody is accounted for and everybody who should be extracted is?
I mean, basically, we're begging the Taliban to save Americans. That's what this is.
Yeah. John Hayward is the National Security Deputy Editor at Breitbart News. John, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Well, thank you very much for having me.
Your general comment on the moral and policy imperative right now, which is getting Americans and Afghan allies out of Afghanistan.
Well, that certainly is the imperative. This whole thing was bungled beyond belief. I mean, this is the worst disaster, I think, maybe in American history. I'm at a loss to think of anything that was more disastrous, more poorly planned, more calamitous. We're reduced to this $1 trillion military, $1 trillion spent in Afghanistan, $1 trillion military budget. And Biden's Joint Chiefs guy is up there saying, oh, we can't do anything. We have no capability. Sorry, we have no capabilities at all. We're helpless. All we can do is plead with the Taliban. Please don't kill our people. Please let them come to the airport. You promised you'd let them come to the airport. The Taliban is not doing that. We have confirmed reports from across Kabul of the Taliban setting up checkpoints, beating people with whips and chains, firing guns at them, keeping them from getting to the airport. So they clearly aren't keeping any promise that they made to let people in there. They're not going to keep that promise. And honestly, I think the best thing we have going for us right now, the best hope we have that this doesn't turn into a bloodbath or a gigantic Jimmy Carter hostage situation that goes on for years, is that the Taliban is getting a lot of political advice from China. That's their new partner. And the Chinese are telling them, don't do that or it will topple the Biden presidency, and we like him right where he is. Wow. The enemies of America very much want Joe Biden to stay there. They don't want this administration to come down. This is a bonanza for them. It's a field day. Why would they want Joe Biden to go anywhere? So the Chinese are going to be advising the Taliban, yeah, kill a bunch of the Afghans, what are they going to do? But don't kill the Americans, let them go, because we don't want to bring Biden down. We need him there.
But America, I mean, the Secretary of Defense, they don't have their Americans back. I mean, what you want to hear is we will get them out at no matter what cost. We will save our Americans that are over there. Do you know how many people, is it 10,000? Is it 15,000? How many U.S. citizens with passports are there?
I've heard estimates much higher than that. I don't think the Biden administration knows what it's doing in any respect, so I wouldn't credit any of their numbers or estimates. I have heard 40,000. Kicked around as the real number. I think it's much higher than the number that they're saying it is. The Biden State Department, by the way, day before yesterday, they sent a message out to every American in Afghanistan that said, you're on your own. We can't help you.
Get to the airport.
If you can get to the airport, get to the airport, but your life's in your hands. That has to be the nadir, I think, of American power and prestige in our entire existence. I think that's the low point. Yeah, the Biden administration sending a text message to people and saying, hey, you're dead. We can't help you. Just get to the airport, please. Do what you can.
It's stunning. It's stunning. Some of the pronouncements from Jake Sullivan, National Security Advisor, as well as Milley in Austin yesterday. And this idea, you're here we go again, signaling. You're telling the Taliban, we don't have the capacity to do mass extractions. It's first come, first serve at the airport. So you're indicating to them our limitations, and it's really a self-imposed limitation, because it's not a resource limitation. It's I don't know what it is. It's a self-imposed moral or policy limitation that we will deploy what the resources that need to be deployed to pull people out of the neighborhoods where they're stranded or wherever else they are, and we'll bring hell with us as needed.
And there's some grousing from the British troops that are deployed there, that the American troops have apparently been ordered to stay tightly inside the airport. They won't go outside it. They won't help anybody outside it. The British are sending paratroop units out there to try to bring people in. The Americans won't do that. They're under orders not to. So I think there's a real sense here that they don't want to step over that line they've drawn around the airport, or that could escalate, become a big war with the Taliban that Biden doesn't want. So it's a policy constraint. Capability-wise, I'm sure we have plenty of weapons.
Sorry, but there was another airport that they could have used, the Bagram Air Force Base, that they closed. Why would they do that? They could have gotten all the Americans out if they kept that place open.
That is really baffling. A lot of people that are veterans of Afghanistan that have been commenting on this have just been scratching their heads in disbelief that anybody let Biden do that, that was just calamitous to let Bagram go. That would have been a much better place to conduct this evacuation from than Kabul. It's baffling. It's almost incomprehensible. Why did he do that? And the only real answer, I guess, is that, Biden he's not a smart man. He's never been a smart man before he started losing his mental faculties. But he's very, very insistent that he's a genius. He will tell anybody who listens that he knows everything. So he apparently, according to the leaks we're getting, he ignored all kinds of input from the military, from the intelligence apparatus. Everybody involved in Afghanistan is now saying, we were telling him, don't do this, don't let Bagram go, don't do this plan. And Biden ignored them and said, no, I know best, I'm Joe Biden, I'm going to do this. I see no alternative explanation.
He wants to keep his perfect record intact, as Bob Gates, former DOD CIA, said. Hasn't been right about one foreign policy matter in about 20 years, maybe longer, and that stays intact. With respect to the Americans, I think a lot of people are surprised to hear the potential number, the range of numbers of Americans who are in Afghanistan. What's your sense of the composition of that cohort, the Americans in Afghanistan? Who are these Americans?
Well, according to Joe Biden, they're idiots. He called them stupid and said they should have left sooner, and why are they even there? He's complaining that they're there and he has to worry about them now. But why wouldn't they have stayed there? A month ago, Joe Biden was telling them there was no way the Taliban could take over the country, that the huge and well-equipped Afghan military would easily destroy the Taliban when they tried to descend from the northern provinces. So there was no reason to worry. And even once that wasn't true, and the Taliban was taking city after city after city in this blitzkrieg as they swept across the country, Joe Biden was out there saying, it'll take 90 days, 6 months. Kabul will hold out for a long time. He was telling everybody that would listen that they had all kinds of time to do whatever was necessary. Now, I would assume most of the people still in Afghanistan are not tourists. They probably have some kind of job. They're probably contractors.
Right.
A lot of them would have worked with the Afghan civilian government. So I don't think they're just, they're not there because they had 2 days left on their hotel package and didn't want to let it go. Yeah. They're there for a reason.
Yeah, right.
And the fact that they're not near the airport, I think, would then begin to tell you something of what they were doing. They were involved in industry. They weren't necessarily directly involved with the Afghan government because of where the airport's located. So, these are people that had jobs and reasons to be there, and they didn't think this was going to happen. Nobody thought the Taliban was going to sweep into Kabul overnight, and that is a massive intelligence failure. This is partially, again, Biden's fault because the leaks are now saying he was told this could happen and he ignored them. But also, how could our intelligence people, our massive intelligence military community, how did they not know that the Taliban was quietly arranging a string of surrenders from northern Afghanistan all the way to Kabul in a straight line that would take only a week? It would have taken them months to negotiate those deals, and we had no idea they were doing it.
He is John Hayward, Breitbart News National Security Deputy Editor. John, thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you, and he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
Connect with Dan and Amy using the AM560 mobile app. Download it today at 560theanswer.com/mobile.
Did you miss the open enrollment this year? I can help